Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Show. Got a nice little show here with 5 best bets I'm bringing you for this Thursday slate in the NBA. 7 games that we're looking at here. A little bit of a decently muddled injury report as we're used to in the NBA, but do have some early plays. Also going to have that live stream going at 5:30 p.m. Eastern today on Thursday, as we do every weekday right now. Getting some really good bets in. I'm going to show you how exactly we did yesterday on the stream and get right into these best bets with you so we can get ahead of stuff. But looking at yesterday, 6-3 total, plus 1.7 units on the day there. And looking at the player props, made 0.8 units. Another sweep on the sides and totals with just one bet, but up 0.9 now there, making a really nice comeback on the sides and totals. On the show earlier, the pre-recorded show, as this one is, we had Akbaji over 9.5, the Boston team total, and we did not get that Brad Beal bet. Not a good showing from Brad Beal. Didn't even take that many shots. Only took like 6 shots. Probably wouldn't have gotten us there, but missed most of them. Only ended up with 3 points, so that wasn't a great look. But we made up for it with the live stream picks there. Went 4-2 on the live stream picks, as you can see specifically there, up a unit on those. A lot of half a unit plays there, with Kelly Olynyk being the most confident one that we had to go under. We'll continue to search for unders for Kelly Olynyk because that has been super profitable for us lately on the season. That brings us to 31.7 units total, 35.9 on those Playa Props, and in the green there and the black, if you will, for sides and totals, plus 1.4 units. So we'll keep looking for some good value on all these and jump right into my first best bet, which is an under for Franz Wagner. Under 25.5 points, rebounds, and assists for Franz in a matchup against the Pellies, who's going to be a defense that is not a good matchup for Franz. And I'll talk about that game a little bit more in a sec. But the thing here for Franz is, if you look at his rebound profile, his playmaking profile, this team is going to limit rebounds and assists to him. He's been on a complete slump, shooting really, really poorly from the field in his last basically 10 games. And really, since he came back from an injury maybe about a month ago now, really struggling to score. Only gone over this number 3 times in the last, or 2 times rather, in the last 10 games for Franz. And those were against teams named Toronto twice. The third one as well got this number against the Wizards. So against teams not the Wizards and not the Raptors, 2 of the worst, if not the worst defenses in the league right now. We're talking about Franz going under in 7 of those 10 games. So not a good look right now for him on offense. And everywhere that he wants to shoot from is exactly where the Pellies have been awesome. They're the best 3-point defense in the league. He's going to be the one looking for threes more than anybody on this team, outside of maybe the spot ups for Jalen Suggs and Gary Harris. But really, with Franz, he's the one pulling up from and finding his own shot. Also, the dude taking the most shots on the team inside of 5 feet, right around the rim. And that's where the Pellies have really stepped up their defense. We've seen a really good job done by Zion Williamson at this point. The way that he's been D'ing up individually, his defensive rating has dropped all the way to about 108 individually in the last 10 games. So he's been putting on a show as well. He's going to have a bad matchup with Najee Marshall and Herb Jones. They spent the majority of the time on him last time that he played this Pelly team and only got 11 points. And the only time he's gone over versus the Pellies is when Zion hasn't played, Brandon Ingram didn't play, Herb Jones only played 18 minutes, and he went comfortably over this, but much different look here with a bad matchup for Franz. Second best bet here, we've got Isaiah Hartenstein going over 15.5 points and rebounds combined for the Knicks starting center. We just did this against Golden State, and we got an over there. I do believe the 25 minutes we saw, I was projecting closer to 30 for him in that game against the Dubs, because I did think they would need his rebounding on the defensive glass. And I was right, except for what I didn't take into account is that perhaps they were going to save him to not get to the 30 minutes if they could avoid it, and played him only 25 in that Warriors game, so he could play against Jokic and this Nuggets team here on Thursday. The thing about that game was he actually came back. He was only at about 20 minutes going into the fourth. Didn't seem like they would really need him, but then Golden State started to come back on the back of getting offensive rebounds and getting second chance points, and a lot of those second chance points turning into 3-pointers off those offensive rebounds. So they brought him back in for another 5 minutes. He got another 4 rebounds in those 5 minutes, because that's why they brought him in, and that's not necessarily what they're going to have to do tonight against the Nuggets. They're not going to save him, even if they are close in this game or winning this game. You're not going to see Hartenstein sit for too long or more minutes than he would normally, because he's the best defender against Jokic. He's the best dude to keep Jokic off the glass for this Knicks team. So you are going to see him get those minutes, I think. And if you look at even the last 3 for him, those 25 minutes has still led to almost 17 rebound chances and 11 boards per game, because that's where he's sitting and what he's doing. I like adding the points here as well because Denver is vulnerable on the defensive glass, meaning he could be getting a lot of offensive boards and putbacks. They're also vulnerable against the roll man. We know he's going to be doing that with Jalen Brunson. Whenever he's on the floor, the offense is going to be heavily predicated on him screening and rolling for JB. And everybody who plays the Nuggets wants to put Jokic in as much defensive action as they can to try to tire him out, which isn't something that he's necessarily going to do. He's in very good shape for a massive dude. But Denver struggle to guard his position, and down low since the All-Star break, they're giving up the second most chances in terms of field goal attempts around the rim. And they haven't been defending that well either. They still have a bottom 10 sort of defensive field goal percentage in that area as well. And Hartenstein is shooting at about 70% from down low inside of 5 feet since the All-Star break himself. So if he's going to get 6 attempts, let's say, on this one, I do think he's good for at least 10 points. You could look for a double-double. I think 5 shot attempts is pretty fair for him, but if his 6.5 point prop is too low, so I do like adding it to the rebounds, which has jumped up from about 7.5 now to 8.5. If you took over 8.5 rebounds for him, wouldn't tell you not to either, as you get some pretty good juice there. Third bet we got here, Amin Thompson, over 12.5 points. You can also get him for over 13.5 points if you want, and that I'm putting a half a unit on this one as well, minus 130 here for Amin. What can we say? The kid's hot right now. If you look at the last 3 games without Şengün playing at all, 21 points per game, nearly 12 field goal attempts. That's over his last 3. His minutes are up to about 28.6 per game without Şengün in those last 3. Saw 32.5 in this last game. And Chicago has not been a good defense, plain and simple. They were sort of laying their hat on that earlier in the season, and over the course of their last 10, they're down to the 3rd worst defensive rating, 4th worst, I believe, defensive rating in the league. And they are struggling down low to defend anything that goes on down there. Bottom 10 interior defense in terms of allowing the bottom 10 in terms of allowing makes down there, allowing percentage as well to that. So it's frequency and percentage that they're giving up down low right now. And they're not good at limiting transition points. And that's what Amin's been doing as much as anybody at this point. He and Jalen Green are pushing the fast break for this Houston Rockets team that has been playing at a super fast pace, which just leads me to my next bet here, which is Houston and Chicago to go over 218.5, another half unit on this here. We're talking about Houston having their pace up to 3rd fastest in the league over the last 5 games, and 4 of those are without Şengün entirely. The Chicago defense, like I said, 5th worst defensive rating. I do expect Houston to be able to get theirs in this one, especially at home where they play better offense. And then that Chicago pace is actually up, and the game totals are up on the road for Chicago, up at about 236 per game in their last 5 on the road, 231 per game in their last 10 on the road. And I'm projecting a lot of free throw attempts. That's something that we've seen DeMar do both on the road and at home. But DeMar is definitely going to be somebody who's looking for getting his. And Houston will foul at basically the 4th highest rate in the league. They give up the 4th most free throw attempts and the 4th highest rate of free throw attempts for their opponents that they're giving up. And the same concept for Chicago. They've been fouling a lot, and Houston has been driving a ton to the basket with a top 5 team in terms of the amount of drives that they have per game, with guys like Jalen Green taking over there, even Fred VanVleet, who's been diming up off of the dribble drive as well. So I do think the amount that both teams are attacking the basket is good reason to believe in points and some stoppage of play when we get those free throw attempts, which always helps an over, right? The clock stops, so we get a bit more time, and you get some guys rested, and you get those free points without anybody being able to block your free throws. So we love the free throws adding to the points and expecting them from both sides. And the offensive rebound should be there for Houston as well. That's Chicago's been terrible in terms of their rebound percentage. They are in the bottom 5 in terms of rebound percentage over their last 10 games. Houston has jumped up to about 6th or 7th best. About the last 5 to 10 games, they've been around there. And Şengün's been in there for some of that. But even in the last 3-4 games, they've been a very, very good rebounding team. So I do like them to be able to get offensive rebounds and second chance points and get us over 218.5. And last one we got here, best bet number 5. Pellies at the Magic. And we got a little bit of a Spider-Man meme going on here with these two teams being so similar in how they play. Top 2 teams in defensive rating since the break. And really, I think it's just about New Orleans doing what they do better than what Orlando does. The same stuff, right? And they're going to both lock you up. They're both going to play really good interior defense. And they're both going to be pretty good around the 3-point line. Pellies, though, going to be the best at that. And the Pellies have shown a propensity to score more than this Orlando team, at least the ability to find easier buckets with more 3-point shooting than Orlando, even though it's not that much. I mean, Trey Murphy shooting like making about 4 threes a game out of about 10 attempts over his last 10 to 15 games is pretty wild. It's pretty helpful. And that corner three has been there for a lot of those dudes, but really also Zion playing at the level that he's playing, which is better on D, as I mentioned in that Franz pick, but it's also been him attacking the basket a ton, getting a lot of stuff in isolation, there's not really a great matchup for him on this Orlando team. Honestly, like, I mean, they might probably have to go with Wendell Carter Jr. here. I guess you can try Paolo, but everybody's giving up too much to him. And Orlando, as good as they are individually around the perimeter on defense and as a collective down low, I do think there's going to be a lot of stuff opened up by Zion driving. They can either choose to double, or they're going to get beat on the off of basically leaving him by himself. And Orlando, while they've been beating up on bad teams this year, they're not quite the same team as like an underdog at home. And this 2.5 spread isn't the same as something we might have seen last year, where you get like Orlando plus 8.5. And then it's like, well, okay, that I love, but minus 2.5 for the Pellies, I do think that's a great bet for them here. The only game they've lost on the road since the All-Star break was a back-to-back versus Indy that they gave up right away, and then that one turned into a bit of a blowout. But other than that, they have been dominant on the road since the break, and I think that continues here against Orlando. And that is all the time that I have for you guys in this one. Continue to follow along, subscribe to that page. Don't forget that live stream is coming up at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, as we do every day. Went 4-2 yesterday for another unit, so come through and see what player props. Jump in the comments there and let me know what you're thinking. It's March Madness, so make sure you check out the college basketball stuff we have up with Oaks as well. And until I see you next, happy betting.